Up and happening. We are today at SAS North. It is probably the place to be at in Ottawa for sure, but definitely in Canada-wide, actually, it's become quite a spectacular event. And we just had Leo Lakshya, and he was saying they are planning to make this an institution for businesses in SaaS. Now, next to me here, the founder of SaaS Academy, Dan Martell. Dan, thank you so much for taking.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm excited.
Well, you know what, Dan, it's such a pleasure in having you here because you are a entrepreneur that has been very vocal. You've been very successful, but you've also been playing that. I want to that mentor role and trying to help other entrepreneurs get to the next level. So before we dive into maybe your business itself, maybe you can explain to us a little bit. You recently spoke at the conference as well, and you had a message that you wanted to get out there to the entrepreneurs out there. So I'd love you to share that a little bit with us.
Yeah, so the idea was for a lot of founders, it was around webinars. You know, my biggest belief is that most founders have trouble with like attracting customers and converting those customers into kind of long-term monthly recurring revenue. So I made an argument that 99% of webinars are doing it wrong, and I shared a framework called my Winning Webinar Framework that talks to them about two key areas, because I had 30 minutes, which I was way too short. It actually, I had to rework the whole slides today. And I focus on two core areas. One, how to create content that converts. Like what's the difference between content that's educational, informational, and content that's marketing content? And they're totally different. So I gave them my process for that. And then I also shared a way to sell without feeling salesy, and it's called The Turn. And it's really a way where you ask for permission. It sounds crazy, but I showed everybody in the audience, and all their heads were like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. Where your customers actually ask you, plead with you to make an offer, to essentially give them a irresistible offer, essentially to pre-commit to your product. Many of my clients that I coach will sell a year, 2-year, 3-year contracts on these webinars at scale. So it's high leverage. It's not death by demos. And there's nobody in the marketplace teaching this stuff. And I figured if I'm going to teach one thing, that was going to be it.
Well, I love what you just said. It's wonderful when you can get your client saying to you, please tell me how much is this worth? What can we do? Offer me something. I want to work with you.
Yeah.
I love your product. And it is also much easier to close it when your client is the one that's engaging first.
Yeah, they're saying, please tell me how I move forward with you. And I think that's, and at a high level, the framework is essentially you teach the content in a way that whatever 3 features or benefits your product have, you teach the way to do that manually, so that when you finally get, say, like, hey, I just taught you guys how to get these incredible results, how to set up whatever, but there's actually a way to do this in 1/10 of the time. Would you guys like to learn how? And they're like, well, I already trust that this is incredible and I could get the result, but you're telling me I can learn how to do this in a fraction of the time. Yes, please do. And that's where you talk about your solution. And that's the turn. That's where your clients say, and you do it on a webinar, you ask them, leave a comment and say, yes, yes, yes. Yeah. And then the ones that don't want to hear it, they bounce off, and that's okay. And I've seen clients close 10, 15% of the participant in a webinar. I mean, this changes the game. Most of the folks that I work with are bootstrap founders from non-coastal cities that are really struggling to build, like they've built great product, they have traction, but they're really, escape velocity. And all of a sudden now you have this mechanism where you can get people on a webinar and have 300 or 400 people live and be able to, really improve your cash flow position, because these are pre-sales, annual contract values, sometimes 1, 2, 3 years paid up front. Yeah. I think it's probably one of the most powerful things right now in the SaaS space that's not being talked about, it's not being utilized, and I was really honored to have the opportunity to share it today.
That's awesome. And Dan, once again, I've seen you speak numerous times, and as I mentioned, you have had multiple companies as well that have been acquired, and you've moved on from there as well. And now you're here, and we're talking a little bit more about SaaS Academy or SaaS Academy. Yeah. Maybe you can explain to me a little bit. It kind of seems self-explanatory, but maybe you can explain with me a little bit what that's all about.
Yeah, so what happened is, a lot of people know me as the guy that built, Flowtown and exited in Clarity. I was super blessed to have been nominated as Angel Investor of the Year in 2012, and I speak around the world at Berkeley, Stanford. I've got a YouTube channel that's been ranked by Entrepreneur.com as top 10 YouTube channels. What most people don't know is the work I've been doing over the last 2 years, really coaching what I call high-performing SaaS founders. The process is there's a high bar, there's an application process, and I only take on clients that I feel I could really knock it out of the park for them. So there's a value fit. You know, I have the 3 quicks, which are quick to implement, quick to ask for help, and quick to share so everybody else learns. But SaaS Academy is just the umbrella of my program. That's what I call it, but it's really coaching with me in a scalable way. And there's you know a handful of entrepreneurs. We get together 3 times a year. We talk every month. I bring incredible investors and other entrepreneurs that have scaled to 100 million plus to come in and share some of their war stories with them. And it's really the most impactful thing I could do. You know, I've always had a business coach. You know, I believe that mentorship and investing in yourself is one of the best moves you can make. And the challenge with having a coach is, you know, they're working with other incredible people. Yeah. You never get to meet them. Yeah. Most business coaches just ask you questions. Yes. Many of them have never been there before. Yes. So I just created a program that looks like coaching that has really 3 components. One, I call it they come for the content. So I teach very specific frameworks and worksheets. So they come for the content, they win because of the coaching, and they stay because of the community. Awesome. And that is SaaS Academy.
Awesome, I love it. And what I love about you is that you are so precise with your messaging and articulating your message. And I think why you are such a key asset to this whole conference is that, once again, even with the webinars now, you're just clarifying that message and helping those companies get to articulate what it is they can really provide, and really understanding what it is the potential client needs. So maybe some insight on that. Do you feel that is, I mean, that's clearly a component that a lot of companies still have to work on and define?
Yeah, so I call it positioning. I mean, you know, I do an event called the Growth Stacking Summit, and it's 3 parts. It's positioning, product, and promotion. You know, the fun part, and that's why I really love to kind of go through an application interview process before I even decide to take on a client, is because there's these gems in the rough. Like, you know, I've you know, one of my clients, they were doing about 8,000 a month in MRR and grew to 80,000, almost 100 or a million ARR in a 6-month period. And the reason why is their messaging was totally off. So what's neat is just seeing these little tweaks, right? And I call it the product hook and the promise. And we're talking no software changes, no feature changes, no major overhauls, just language on the homepage. And all of a sudden, it sets the expectation for what the customer can expect inside the product, in their onboarding experience, in their activation sequence. And I think that is, you know, that's the power of messaging. Most people don't know who they serve and who they don't. You know, as much as you'll tell me, here are my customers, you know, I ask 3 questions usually when I meet somebody is, who do you serve, what problem do you solve, and how do you solve it? And I can tell so much by how an entrepreneur or founder answers those questions in regards to how successful they're in the business, because the ones that are killing it are crystal clear on who the customer is. Yeah. They're crystal clear in explaining what problem they solve, and they know exactly how their product solves that problem for that specific customer. And I get it. When you start off, you're trying to be anything to anybody, right? Yeah. And I get that. It's probably the death kiss. One of the most powerful things you can do is get clear on who you serve, who you don't. And the fun part is asking yourself, one question that's really fun to ask is, who would I work with if I knew I only got paid if they were successful? Because then that's the question. If you can answer that, it's like, what kind of customer that you know you can knock it out of the park for, and you would only get paid once they got that result. So that means you can't work with these people because they may not. Maybe 10% would, right? And your business would totally suffer. So I think that's a great question to get you clear on that messaging.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Now, for yourself, once again, you know, there's many other places you can be today, but you're here. And I'd love to know, what do you think about just being in this environment, and, you know, what this conference really means to business, to SaaS, to Ottawa, to Canada for that matter?
So some people know my story. You know, I grew up in a really colorful childhood, is an easy way. Ended up in jail twice by the time I was 17, alcoholic mother. And I ended up at a place called Portage, which was a therapeutic community and rehab center for adolescents. And it was there that I discovered computer programming. After 11 months of therapy, you know, I was helping clean out this cabin, and the maintenance guy, Rick, you know, I was helping him out, and I found this book on Java programming, and it transformed everything for me. It became my new addiction, and entrepreneurship, funny enough, is the ultimate personal development program you can embark in. And what I learned there was the power of community. And the place that I went to, the program structure was all the residents were essentially driven by the peers. The staff were there just to make sure nothing crazy happened, but for the most part, the residents ran the program. And that was the first exposure that I had to the power of community, friends that are on a shared journey, trying to do more with their lives. And, you know, that lesson has continued in my life. And the reason I'm here is because I know how powerful hearing the right message by the right messenger at the right time can transform a life. And I don't take it for granted that I have the opportunity to get on stage. And my mission, and I said this morning when I woke up, my job today is to change some lives. And I know that might sound crazy, and I'm okay with those people. But that, I think it would be irresponsible for you to get on a stage and take that time and not have that as an outcome, because I still pinch myself that this is what I get to do. Like, I don't take it for granted one day. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking some time and sharing some of your excitement and passion with us. I mean, it's clear that it's just overflowing, and it's contagious, which is spectacular. So thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on all you have done up to this point. But most importantly, look forward and seeing more.
Started,
I know.
Just getting
I know.
started.
And that's the funny thing. And
Yeah.
but that's what I feel. It's so a common message throughout talking to a lot of dynamic entrepreneurs here, that they're like, yeah, we've done some awesome things. That's all great and well, whatever. This is, we're just scratching
Now
the
that
surface.
I know what I know.
Wait.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you
Cheers.
so much. Thank you, guys.